So Natalia, thank you so much for participating in our YouTube channel. We have interviewed so many leaders like yourself that have made a difference in community, and we're doing the change that we want to see. So on behalf of SETC, I really thank you today for participating in our community of practice channel.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's really a joy to be here and an honor to be interviewed by you all amongst all the other incredible leaders that you've been interviewing.
Nice, nice. All right. So, as always, we begin by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So, if you can please do us the honors by introducing yourself to our listeners and viewers and tell us about your remarkable work.
Yes, happy to. So I'm Natalia Arjomand, the Senior Director at Secondmuse Capital. Secondmuse Capital is the impact investing arm of Secondmuse, a global organization that is bringing people together to build economies that benefit people and protect the planet. Within Secondmuse Capital, I'm responsible for a lot of the day-to-day management of the organization and setting our strategic goals. I'm also the lead for our innovative product design offering, which is called the Future Economy Lab. We started the lab in 2020, really as an experiment based on the work that we had been doing at Secondmuse for over a decade to see what it would look like to design financial mechanisms collaboratively with a diverse group of stakeholders. Our process is really focused on how do you design with the community and not only for it. And the reason why we started our journey in the capital space by focusing on design is because we know how much the design of a product is important to the impact that it's seeking to make. You could invest in a sector that is, deemed as an impact sector, let's say climate or youth well-being, but if you're doing it in a way that it's extractive, you're actually causing more harm than good. And so this is why for us it was really important to kind of go back to first principles and really think about how can we listen, like truly listen to both the supply and the demand side and design financial products that are meeting the needs of diverse group of stakeholders and not just investors at one end.
Yes, absolutely. It makes total sense. It makes absolute total sense. And can you articulate your personal mission and vision for us? And I also like to combine like what inspires you. So can wrap that up for me. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, what inspires me right now, I've been with the organization for 12 years, so quite some time. And what's inspiring me right now is the fact that I don't have to convince people that collaboration is needed, and that by working together and including the voices that have historically been left out of conversations, we're going to be designing better products and we're going to have more meaningful outcomes. And, when I first started with the organization, we had to really get people to understand why we need to collaborate and what collaboration looks like. It's not all of us sitting around in a circle, holding hands, agreeing to everything that everybody has to say, but it's really taking the time to truly understand the needs and barriers of each of the different stakeholders is facing when we're trying to create change, and doing that with an open mind and an open heart. And so for me, that's really important, and a lot of what kind of drives me and inspires me in my work. So now, whether I'm talking to, a large international aid agency or investment bank or a small family office, the question isn't really about like why collaboration, but it's more about how, right? Like how are we going to do things differently? And that's a really big shift that I've seen and is really inspiring for me.
Very well, very well. And okay, so on the other side now, what challenges and barriers have you faced in your work and how have you worked to overcome them?
Yeah, so I think, you know, whenever you're engaging in a collaborative process, it's going to take time. And so I think for us, that is one of the biggest challenges that we're facing because we also all know what a valuable resource time is. You can't rush trust building between different stakeholders. You can't rush to a solution that's trying to solve a problem that's been around for 100 years. And so we've been really fortunate that a lot of the partners that we have worked with understand this, but we've also come along, a lot of stakeholders or organizations that, they'll love what we do on paper. They want to work with us. But then when I talk about like the length of the process, that really, turns people off and say, well, no, this takes too long. Like we need to get to a product market faster. We don't have this much time to invest. We need to, there's this like urgency. And I think it's well intentioned, right? Because the organizations that we're talking to are trying to use capital as a means to solve some of the most pressing challenges. So it's not like they're trying to get a product to market just to make money faster. Like they really do want to seek change, but the reality is that this work takes time. And so one of the things that our team has been working on, because we kind of faced this barrier over and over, was really working to, kind of some going back to the basics, documenting our process more, leaning on the work that we've already done. We've run about 7 different labs, each on different topics, ranging from property ownership to climate to investing in girls of color to looking at how do you get more financing to cooperatively owned organizations. Well, these are all different verticals. There's also a lot kind of commonalities that we're seeing across these different sectors that we've been working on. So we've also been spending more time really kind of pulling from each of these learnings, and being able to kind of leverage from our own repository. I think also, when we started this work, it was right in the beginning of the pandemic. And so in person events were not happening. All of our work was being done virtually. Now people do feel more comfortable being in person. So that's also helped in not just kind of reducing the time, but also there is a different connection and level of trust building that you're able to have with people in person. So I think another challenge that we face in our work is this need, and I think this is more broadly, not just specifically in what we do, but this need to always have a very linear theory of change and measure the direct outputs and outcomes of our work. The reality is, when you're trying to design financial products that are creating more inclusive climate economies or bring more investment to girls of color, the impact that you're going to make is really hard to measure because it's not a linear log frame model that we can use, right? And so it takes time to also see some of the impact of this work. So, while I do believe it's so important for us to be monitoring and thinking about how are we measuring our impact, I do think that we need to just think more expansively about this and really be more flexible in how we're talking about this impact that we're making.
Absolutely. It's never linear, you know. There's so many, ebbs and flows, different perspective on things and different outcomes. So
Yeah.
totally agree.
Yeah,
All
humans are
right.
complex.
Yes,
Our
that's
systems are
it. Wouldn't it
complex.
be a boring world if we were all the same, AI, Oh dear. Okay, so what are some of the key priorities? Like, what are you working on currently?
Yeah, so our work focuses really on 3 key pillars: climate, equitable growth, and entrepreneur support. I recognize that those are very broad, and you can argue that, every entrepreneur and every business touches climate, and everybody should be thinking about equitable growth. But for us, that's exactly the point. We need to be thinking about the intersection of these more deeply and recognize that we can't kind of leave climate on the sidelines or gender or racial equity behind. So we've also been thinking a lot more about the role of young people in our economies. We just finished up a lab in the US that was focused on investing in young girls and youth of color to create an abundant future based on the vision that they've created. And so we're going to be launching an early stage VC fund that's investing in businesses that are working towards building this beautiful world kind of for all of us to live in. And we're also now working with World YMCA on a global lab that's thinking about how can we use innovative finance to support youth in their kind of learning to earning journey so that they have the right skills for employment, and more importantly that they have meaningful jobs. There's this huge gap where 1 in 5 young people globally aren't engaged in employment, education, or training. And then at the same time, we have about 87% of employers that are currently facing or expect to face a skills gap. So there's a huge kind of mismatch there. And I think for us, we know how important youth and young people are to our futures. And so it's really important for us to really be thinking about how can we elevate their voices and really look to them to kind of guide our futures.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I remember in high school we used to have was it yeah, high school. We had placement where we would go to the jobs, and I think the
Mm.
school would pay for our salaries, I mean, but I don't know if they still have that now. I'm really dating myself, but you know, it was helpful. It was helpful on both spectrums. It was helpful for myself as a student, as a young person. It was helpful for the employer to know if it's a good fit, if it's a good match. Is this something that you really want to do as you grow older, or you know what I mean? So I hope that that's still in place, or at least some programs out there that will kind of match, and see how the youth can make a difference and an impact in the future, whatever future model that looks like, and business that they want to get into. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. So how do you feel about the future of social impact in Canada currently?
I'm excited. I think there's actually a lot going on in Canada with government-led initiatives as well as public and private sector taking more interest in solving some of the today's most pressing challenges. With the launch of the Social Finance Fund last year, we have long-term commitment to advance the growth of the social finance sector here in Canada. I think the fruits of that effort we'll start to see in a few years. I think we've started to see some of that now, but having more access to flexible financing opportunities will certainly help social impact organizations grow and innovate. And we know that when they're growing, they're also increasing the positive impact that they're making in our communities. So one of the biggest barriers that we've seen in our work kind of over and over again is this lack of right-sized capital or capital that is flexible. And so that's holding back a lot of small business owners, social entrepreneurship, so having this significant influx of capital with the support of the fund managers that have been chosen to kind of steward this capital, I'm confident that we'll see significant growth in the sector. It may take some time for us to see, all of that impact, but I think it's beautiful that we do have this long-term commitment. I've been living in Quebec for the last 12 years, and from the first time that I came to the province, I was really impressed, honestly, by how social impact is a natural part of the culture here, whether, it was in business meetings or the number of green spaces in the city, or how my kids, even at daycare, were learning about environmental responsibility. I mean, there's definitely more that we could be doing, especially as it relates to climate change and gender and racial equity. But I truly believe that there are a lot of people out there that are looking at how can we bring about change to create a more just, resilient, and inclusive country. So yeah, I think overall I'm excited.
Awesome, awesome. Me too. I'll put it out there. I'm always hopeful for the next generation, you know. I mean, they're
Yeah.
advancing so fast, and it's like they can't be fooled, you know what I mean? They kind of see through the veil of illusion, and they know they want us to just get rid of the fluff, just give us what we got to do, and let's get right to it. That seems to be the attitude of this new generation, and so I'm hopeful as well. I'm definitely hopeful.
Yeah, may they
Oh,
learn from our mistakes and pave the way forward.
absolutely, absolutely. So you probably already answered this, but what do you feel is your ultimate goal, and what does success look like to you?
Yeah, for us, it really is about, thinking about how you have more capital in the hands of these amazing entrepreneurs and innovators that are looking to solve some of these pressing challenges that we're facing as a society, but in a way that's also aligned with their values and beliefs. We want what we design through our work at the Future Economy Lab to be live in the market, making an impact. So ideation, innovation that just kind of sits on paper doesn't really doesn't really get us far. Um, I think at the same time, because our work is a collaborative process and we're intentionally bringing together a diverse group of people that don't normally get to work alongside one another, for us, success is also about that personal transformation and connections that we're able to foster through this, small but growing community of ours. I think if we want to change systems and change the world that we're operating in, we really have to start by changing the mindsets and the hearts of individual people. And I think this kind of goes back to like my point, like that's really hard to measure. Like it's not really something that I can also kind of keep track of, because my hope is that people are being kind of transformed and they are seeing things differently by engaging with people that are different and have a different lived experience than their own. But I can't really fully track to see if that's happened. But that is one of the goals that we have, and kind of what success looks like for us. So when we hear kind of like tidbits of stories of people saying like, oh, I came to one of your workshops, or oh, I read your paper and now this is what we're doing at our organization, like it's really like it really brings a lot of joy to our hearts, because that is also kind of what we're hoping for and trying to see.
Absolutely. And that's why, data is so important, because as we do these projects and do different missions, getting that feedback, seeing how the experience was, and what can be done better, and those things, and owning that data, because everything
Yeah.
now is about data. Everything. I mean, I can't go on a site, I cannot go on an app without them asking me, how did we do? Where's my
Yeah.
stuff? So it's like, oh my goodness, I'm seeing it so much now. So data is everything right now. So, but it helps in the long run, and how we can
Yeah.
improve. Yeah. Well, this has been so remarkable, Natalia. I mean, the work that you're doing is just phenomenal. And, you know, um, I know a lot of people that will listen to this will be very, very inspired, and will definitely reach out to you. So my last question is, do you have any closing thoughts or calls to actions at this time?
Yeah, I mean, I think let's keep the conversation going. But at the same time, like let's make sure that we're not only talking to ourselves. I think the beauty of the Canadian ecosystem is that, it is relatively small, which allows you to build really strong relationships with one another. But at the same time, it's important that we don't unintentionally keep people out of the conversation. A lot of our work has been focused on, how do you prepare folks to come together in a room to discuss the future state of an economy and how innovative financial mechanisms can support this creation of an inclusive and resilient economy. Now that could be a lot of jargon for somebody to step into, and I recognize that, right? And so what we've seen is that, you know, language can be both an enabler, but can also hold people back. Um, and so when we think about the field of innovative finance, impact investing, systems investing, like all of these are still relatively nascent. And while we have kind of some generally accepted definitions to some of these terms, the terms are also um, evolving, right? And so we found that a lot of folks are very easily intimidated and kind of set back and don't know how to engage, or they feel as if, well, I am not a subject matter expert, so I'm not going to contribute to the conversation. Whereas in fact, I think we all have our own, lived experience, our own expertise. And so how do we create a space where we can really foster and encourage dialogue and genuine dialogue among a diverse group of stakeholders? And so I think that's something that we've been really thinking about, and would love to see to bring more people into these conversations and into the room, right? Like, how do we, because we know that representation matters, and so how can we ensure that it's happening in a way where people feel like they can speak their mind, and what they have to share is of value, right? So yeah, I think that's how what I would like to close with.
That's awesome. That's perfect. And that's really what it's about. We want people's voices to be heard. Everybody has their own different lived experience, but we, at some point in the globe, they always say that we have, doubles. We have, different people, but same experience. So sometimes you can, when people come together and we have these discussions, they're like, wow, you're going through that too? Oh my goodness, I can't believe, you said that and I didn't really want to say it, but because you said it, I'm going to say it,
Yeah,
So listen, the conversation needs to be had. I mean, how can I put it? It's almost like something that will combust, because if the conversation is not being had, listen, it will come out in another form. And that's not what we want. We want that roundtable discussion so we can come up with a solution. Yeah. So
yeah.
Natalia, this has been amazing. Really appreciate all the remarkable work you're doing, your leadership. On behalf of Setsu, we thank you again for taking the time out and just letting us know what's going on with you and your business. And we definitely look forward to collaborating with you again soon. So we thank you once again.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. So we will close the way that we began by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So, Natalia, we will speak soon and we'll look forward to collaborating with you again. So, you have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you so much. You as well.
Okay, dear. Bye bye.
Bye.